This is episode 1 of a Digital Music Masters Show.
Digital Music
also
Masters
known
Show.
as the DMM Show.
The DMM Show. With myself, Chris Carvalho, and there we are, look.
We're live right now.
And Thomas George of Digital Music Masters.
So in this first episode of the DMM Show, we're going to be talking about home studio essentials.
Home studio essentials. So, and any questions that you might ask.
Yeah, if you've got any questions about music production, just drop them in the stream and we try and answer them the best we can. If you've got any questions about stuff that isn't related to music production, you can put them as well, but we can't promise or answer them.
Yeah, but go for it, absolutely. So, first of all, I think we'll start by talking about some home studio essentials. So, what does that look like for you, Thomas? Like, what is if someone said to you and they didn't follow up with any sort of extra, like what they're making or anything like that, what is like the box standard stuff that someone needs to get started in music production at home?
I would imagine a MacBook or a laptop that's got at least kind of 16 gig of RAM, quite a powerful computer, a pro level digital audio workstation like Logic Pro, Ableton Live, Cubase, and then a MIDI controller. Doesn't have to be massive, just a standard keyboard MIDI controller, a set of studio monitors, a microphone, and a reasonably priced audio interface like a Focusrite 2i2, something like that. So mic, speakers, interface, laptop, headphones.
Yeah.
It's kind of the essential.
I mean, if you've already got a laptop, a computer, even if it's not the most powerful thing in the world, you will be able to create music. Like, you will be able to get a USB interface like a 2i2, a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2.
Yeah.
And probably a large diaphragm condenser with shock mount and pop shield, large diaphragm condenser microphone. Budget ones are like Rode NT1A or something like that, a good starting point. Because, you know, connecting that, basically the interface will obviously just connect the mic to the computer, basically. If you've got an Apple Mac, you can use GarageBand, which is free from the App Store. But also there is obviously Logic Pro and Ableton Live and stuff like that. It does kind of a little bit depend what you're doing, what sort of music you make. I mean, if you're just making instrumental dance beats, things get a bit simpler.
You don't really need a microphone.
You don't need a microphone.
You don't need an audio interface.
You probably can just get by with a laptop and headphones and stuff.
Yeah, I know Skrillex did a lot of his remixes just with Ableton Live. I'm not sure if it was 8 or 9 at the time, but Ableton Live and a pair of headphones. Yeah. And he used massive synth and had a load of samples, and that's how he made loads of his remixes. So you think a huge name like Skrillex might hire a fancy studio for SSL G Series desk, for example, but no, laptop, headphones, because he was on tour, that's what was available to him. And him create music with a laptop and headphones on tour is a lot better than him not touring, not doing what he loves, and then hiring a studio just for the sake of taking Instagram photos and look at me, when really do what's necessary. But I'd say the essentials is laptop, studio monitors, headphones, audio interface, microphone. But it depends, like you said.
What's important is being able to get from, getting an idea and recording it. Like getting it into the computer, documented in some way as quickly as possible. Or if you've got an idea for a melody or something like that, just get it down. Things like quality of the sound and stuff like that. It's stuff that you can worry about along the way and start to appreciate along the way, and sort of grow out to it over time. But at first, that really shouldn't be your primary concern. Your primary concern should just be the practice of creating music. And you'll be surprised with what you can get out of really, really basic stuff. I've seen loads of people actually, I've seen enough people use bad practices and get bad recordings out of great gear because they just don't know what they're doing. So, and every time they come up against a roadblock, it's more plugins, more gear. Oh, I come in and say, actually, have you thought about doing it that way? And then you probably could have got there with just the £100 thing or whatever it was. How you use the tech and the best practices that you deploy, the simple things that are actually easy to miss, but when you know them, you're like, oh yeah, you know, that actually does make sense. You will get better, you know, you'll get better stuff, but that's not important at first. What's important is creativity, like just being able to start practicing and start getting good, start developing your palate, start developing your ears, because everything else is just theoretical and stuff like that, but putting in the work and, you know, not thinking about anything other than being creative is what's important at first.
Yeah, like I did it the other day. What was it we were doing? Pitch shifting, and I used the Wave Sound Shifter plugin. Mm-hmm. And when we did it in Logic pitch shifter and we split tested it was exactly the same. I didn't need to be using the Waves one. Yeah. I just think, oh, it's Waves, it must be better than the Logic stock. Yeah. People, like, at the end of the day, a lot of people are trying to sell you these plugins. Yeah. So they're trying to make them look shiny, trying to make them look fancy. When, don't get me wrong, Waves do make some great plugins, but they're trying to sell you these plugins, so you don't always need them. People are trying to sell you stuff constantly. Apparently, we're exposed to 5,000 advertisements a day. So it's...
Advertisements.
One of them. Anyway, exposed to a lot of adverts.
Yeah.
So just think, do I actually need this, or have I just been sold it subconsciously?
Yeah, just think to yourself, why do I feel like I need this, and try and deploy a tiny bit of self-awareness into like the emotional process that led you to almost hitting checkout in the whatever site it is, you know? Because in reality, there's not actually a lot. There's only like a handful of categories of things that you can do to a single waveform. You know, some things might be easier than other things in terms of workflow, but you'll probably get more value out of just learning what your existing tools like. Especially with like Logic Pro. I'm not favoritizing Logic Pro right now, but however, it does come with a ridiculous amount of stuff, and it's so easy to overlook or undervalue them because they were free or bundled, when in actual fact, the people who've been developing Logic Pro have been developing those plugins for like 15 odd years or so. That's why they're as good as they are. But yeah, I mean, don't fall into the trap of gearing, especially these days when on like online forums and Facebook groups and stuff like that, it's so much easier to talk about technology on these things. You know, especially when in the same feed there's an advert for a plugin that's going to save your mixes. It's going to make you better or whatever. But anyway, it's that stuff that you really shouldn't be paying attention to at first. Like, if you want a better compressor, just learn how compression actually works. Oh, you know, you will get... The compressors you have will be better compressors the more familiar you are with the process of compression, as an example.
For years, when I first started producing, I didn't really know what a compressor did. For years.
Yeah, of course.
And I bought several compressors, and I just thought compression is what you're meant to put on. So just mess around till it sounds good.
Yes.
Which, to an extent, messing around till it sounds good is kind of what you need to do. But if you know the exact...
Yes.
Like, step by step of how something works.
Yeah. But there are things like... There are cheeky things in plugin presets that...
presets can be the death of you sometimes. It's just too good. Some of these presets are too good. You don't realise how stuff actually works. Yeah. I do it with Serum a lot. Some of the presets on Serum are awesome. And I'm like, I could make my own song from scratch, but this preset's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with a lot of presets are, though, that when you load them, it's louder than the other thing. And the loudness bias comes
it's louder. Oh, you think it's better?
Yeah. I almost think it's a thing that they do. Anyway, but
purposely make it like there.
A little bit, yeah.
And then you end up sticking a limiter on the master channel. Everything just gets super hot.
You make a they make a chain and they go, well, I'm not sure if it is better or not, but I know if there's 3 dB of extra gain coming in or out, it'll sound better. Anyway,
isn't that what master engineers do, right?
Historically, I mean, some have even admitted these days
sticking the limiter on it?
of saying, oh yeah, well, we used to because these days people are actually way more aware of this stuff because information's more free. Like 20 years ago, only mastering engineers knew what mastering actually was, let alone the actual process of it. But anyway, so that's all of the things, those are all the things that you shouldn't overly concern yourself with. You should be concerning yourself with being creative and taking everything with a pinch of salt as well. Not taking things too literally that you read online and stuff.
However, it will help your workflow a lot if you do have a MIDI keyboard. If you do have 100%. A computer that doesn't have system overload every 5 minutes. If you do have a pair of headphones and a pair of studio monitors, it will help your workflow. It's going to be nice. And have a nice designated area you can produce music.
Yeah.
Have like the music place or the music room or somewhere you can just get into your zone, somewhere where it's there to write music. So you're there to produce. You're not like on your laptop, like I don't know, on your bed. You want to be in a specific place, so it's music time. Like with me, I put my phone on like do not disturb, so no one can call me.
Just leave it in the other room.
Yeah, I have stuff around us, like if I have like drinks, water, coffee, snacks all around me, so I don't need to get up for hours.
Coffee's key.
Just so you can just sit there and just not do anything. So make sure, I don't know, if you've got your friends, send them away. Make sure no one's there to disturb you, just so you can get immersed. Because for me, the hardest part is getting started writing music or producing music. It isn't like, as soon as I do it, it's fine, but it's the last thing I want to do. It's like going for a jog. I don't want to be doing it, but the second I'm doing it, it's fine. Yeah,
it's momentum. You get that first dopamine release and then you're in. I mean, I think one thing that's really, really important for people starting out is seriously manage your expectations. Like, it's nothing you make is going to sound good for a long, long time. You know?
Yeah. You do get the flukes like Martin Garrix, who produced pretty popular songs at age 15.
Yeah, absolutely. But he DJ'd for a long time.
Yeah, he probably started at 10 or something.
I know a lot of producers who have come from DJing and they make great arrangements and stuff like that, because when you're actually DJing, you are fixated on the arrangement and stuff like that. It kind of makes...
You're adjusting the arrangement of an existing track.
But also, Martin Garrix, let's like that coffee mug from Phil. Cheers, Phil. But yeah, manage your expectations. It's a lot easier to look at someone else and go, it happened overnight for them, without actually seeing the grind that they did for the 10, 15 years before it, in most cases, you know? And ask yourself as well, why do you want to make music? Because you're probably going to have to remind yourself of that every so often. Why do you do what you do? Because after a while, especially if you do it, you start comparing yourself to your friends and stuff like that, you might start taking it too seriously, and then you forget your why. You forget, hey Chris, hey Nikos, and you forget why you're doing it. And, you know, I generally have to remind myself of those things in general of sometimes, just to get back on track. But yeah, seriously manage your expectations. Like, you have to get good, and these have to develop over a long period of time. Well, forever, really. It doesn't stop.
Well,
you know,
unless you
go
deaf.
Unless you go deaf. I mean, unless you go deaf, don't go deaf, and protect your ears, and take breaks. Like, don't try and think that I have to like nail 15 hours of production a day for long periods of time. Do a bit at a time, or even like set yourself goals. Like, say, I'm going to make a song this month, so this week I need to do this, and next week I need to do that, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Anything, because if you're just trying to...
hey, Mark.
If you're just trying to, like, produce, and you have no goals, you don't have any means to measure, like, your growth or your development. If you're just trying to get as much work done as possible, you'll probably just burn out.
Yeah. Hey, Sinner, I can talk about that. Don't listen to music too loud. Don't have headphones too loud. Don't have speakers too loud. If you're going to gigs, you might look like a bit of a loser, but wear earplugs. If you're going to a nightclub, wear earplugs. I recently got tinnitus, and it's horrible.
Not ideal.
Can't hear silence now. Always a ringing in my ear. So protect your ears. So don't blast music too loud. But that's years of mixing music, listening to music too loud, going to nightclubs, going to gigs. Ear protection. Boring, sensible subject, but it's not a nice feeling when you're lying on your bed at night and all you hear is ringing.
It's all it's all in the boring stuff actually.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Sina. Thank you very much. Excellent. So manage your expectations. Hey Ashley or Naomi, or I'm not sure.
So we actually recorded Ashley, Naomi, aka No Fixed Identity, the other day for part of the vocal production course.
Thank you again.
Thank you for featuring the videos with us.
Yeah, I've been mixing your stuff today as well, which is fun. I'll be continuing to do that over the next few days or so.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. What else have we got here? Ashley today, excellent. Thanks for letting us know, Ashley. Because on Facebook you can't really just change your name.
I think a lot of the equipment is what you get used to.
Yeah.
Like really, I've had the same little rubbish MIDI controller for years. Where is it? Around here somewhere. I've had the same little rubbish pair of studio monitors for years. I could upgrade, I could get better ones, but I'm just used to these. I know what they sound like. I love these headphones more than any in the world. Sennheisers, I don't work for Sennheiser or anything. HD 25s. Just what I'm used to. I've been using these for years. Because I've been using them for years, I know what they sound like. So a lot of it's just getting used to the equipment. Find equipment that you like and just keep using them. It's like anything really. Camera equipment, I always use Canon. It's probably Sony or Panasonic. Could be better. It's just what I'm used to. Maybe I'm just a creature of comfort. I just like certain things in a certain order, certain routine. And that's the same for equipment as well. Always use the same microphone for voiceovers. Use the same preamp. But it takes me a while to get used to that. Hours and hours and hours of research. Nerding in the evening, searching, looking at reviews, try and buy the best stuff you can at the time, and that way when you get equipment you're used to, you can have it for years and just keep, if it does break, just keep buying the same stuff over and over again. Another thing is buy popular brands, so buy like Rode, buy Sennheiser. If you're buying camera gear, buy Canon, because if you want to sell it, it's easy to sell.
Yeah.
Same with guitars. If you buy a Fender Strat, a USA Strat, you can sell it easy if it's in good condition. If you buy like a weird, obscure Ibanez heavy metal guitar no one's ever heard of, it might sound better than the Fender Strat, but it's going to be hard to sell it. So
there's definitely a market for that one.
Yeah. Well, my example is,
I listen to the music.
Buy stuff that's like kind of the popular stuff. If you do want to buy and sell, I buy a lot of stuff secondhand and sell it secondhand every now and again. I'm always upgrading my gear. Chris talks about it's not about the equipment, but I'm a real gear nerd. If anyone's seen my place, it's kind of ridiculous.
That's not an absolute rule. I mean, you know, that's a very context dependent thing. Like gear does matter. It's just what, you know. It's more software that is kind of, it's a smaller variable in a way, because you know, especially in like digital, like a digital EQ is a digital EQ and stuff like that. But, you know, gear does matter. It does, you know, you can capture better quality recordings and stuff like that. However, it's only as big of a variable as you are. You know, like, you know, if you're a complete newbie and you go into
noob, I've heard that for a while.
But you go into a studio, a large format studio, you know, Abbey Road or something like that, and no one else is there, what value can you get out of it? Next to none.
Plenty of Instagram photos. However, if you don't know how to use equipment, it doesn't matter how fancy it is.
Exactly.
It's better to have one good microphone and one good preamp than 100 microphones you don't know how to use. So just get one decent piece of gear at a time and just build it up from there. I'd say it's better to save up and buy one piece of gear, buy one decent mic, then have a load of kind of, I don't want to name any brands, but the one popped in my head, I was like, don't say it. But then have a load of standard, you know, knockoff brands, kind of knock off the top ones. Yeah.
I used to DJ back on an independent radio station back in the day. Independent. But that was a long time ago. It was a question on here. Yeah, so
Nikos has had a question just below. How are we supposed to protect our ears when we're in a club, not as a DJ?
Just earplugs. I've got earplugs.
You can buy clear ear, I think called 20s. The little clear ones that take it down 20 decibels. They're quite small so that you don't look too kind of dorky. Or you can get custom-made ones. The custom-made ones cost a bit more, about $200, or you can get the clearer ones for about $5 on Amazon. Just type in clearer 20s. They're the ones that I wear a lot of the time. Because I lose them basically.
Yeah.
If I buy a nice pair of custom-made earplugs and I lose them, I'll be pretty good. If I lose one of these $5 ones, I don't care. So, but yeah, just get used to wearing them. I always wear earplugs now. Yeah.
This is an interesting question. Do you divide your film to different cues and save them as file? I'll let you read that and take it.
So Cena's got a question. Do you divide your film to different cues and save as different file, working on them and add final projects, or just work on one file if it's a short movie? I mostly use kind of ScreenFlow, and I record in ScreenFlow. So that records the camera, the microphone, the audio of your computer or Mac, all in one project. Or if it's like a camcorder or like a point and shoot like this, if I'm going to edit it, I'll edit it in Final Cut Pro just as one project. So I won't do several projects and splice them together. I'll just do one project at a time. I hope that answers your question. I was a bit confused by the question, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, and any other questions? Nikos has had a couple here. Yeah, protect your ears. What else have we got? Hey Chris, good to see you here. Guys, can you get a good mix if you don't have room treatment?
So this is from Corey.
Yeah, so the room needs the treatment that it needs. Okay, so the theory of room treatment, well, the fact, the science of it is that the room that you are listening, that you are monitoring in, will have an effect on what you're hearing or what's coming out your speakers. Like an EQ does. Like, imagine if you just threw a random EQ preset on your mix, or in the monitoring of your mix. Your room is doing that. It's doing that because it's a space with walls and dimensions and stuff like that. And I'm not going to get into the details about it.
Oh, go on.
No, not in this. That can be a whole thing. Don't get me started.
The room treatment show.
Yeah, the room treatment show. Digital room treatment show. So Cena was
Cena was talking about film scoring for short movies using Logic Pro.
I'll just finish up with Corey's question though.
Okay.
In terms of, can you get a good mix if you don't have room treatment? You probably can if you test on different systems in different places, or you get feedback from other people and then you apply it. A good mix is a subjective thing, but your room could be fooling your ears as to what that mix actually sounds like. So it's definitely important to consider, and you should do it. There's not many good reasons to not treat your room, or at least strategize the acoustics of your room. But I wouldn't just start buying panels and throw them on the walls. What you actually want to know is what problems are actually occurring in my room, because every room is different. It's all specific to modes and frequencies and stuff like that, and then solve those problems. Because if you don't actually know the problems that you're solving, you might just create more. You might just completely miss the buck and spend money and spend time on something that isn't working, or might make it worse, or just completely change the sound of your monitoring in a way that is unexpected, and everything just gets worse. So if you go on AcousticsInsider.com, Johan has a really good tutorial on speaker placement, because actually the sound that you're getting is relative to where your head is, where you are listening from in the room, because that changes the response of the room, but also where the speakers are in that room. So optimize that first, and then you can treat things like modes, which are like basically making bass traps, and early reflections and stuff like that. But optimize where you are in the room, where your speakers are in the room first, and then measure somehow. So the easiest way out of the box, if you like, to do that is, and one way that I like to do that sometimes is like open up a synth that will play you like a square wave, or sorry, a sine wave or a triangle wave or something like that, and just play the keys chromatically. And if you hear notes that are just not there, or they're disappearing, or some that are really, really loud, you can start honing in on the issues of your room, because your room will boost or notch different frequencies in the frequency spectrum. So know the problem and tackle it, and get some advice. Like reputable acoustics companies will give you generally a free consultation, you know, because it's in their interest to do that. And just talk to them about it. I mean, even if you just know what the problems are, you're 50% of the way there to solving the problem. So, yeah, I mean, the good mix thing is subjective, but I know exactly what you're talking about. But that's my best advice. Don't guess it. Do something about it. It's not actually that difficult once you know what you need to do. It's not terribly expensive, and it's darn sight cheaper than buying new monitors, for the most part, or new headphones or whatever.
There's a lot of DIY stuff you could do.
There's a lot, yeah. But
carpets, rugs,
know the problem that
curtains.
you're solving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no point treating a room unless it needs treating.
Yeah, exactly. You don't know what the problem is. So
and if the room sounds appalling,
yeah,
no matter how much treatment you,
yeah,
I don't know. Maybe if you got like if you built a room inside a room, but a lot of the time, if the room sounds appalling,
yeah,
have a look at another room.
Yeah. You know, but also like use headphones to supplement your listening and your monitors and stuff like that. You know, the headphones take away the room variable. So if you know what stuff is supposed to sound like in headphones, that can help you. It's definitely not, you know, the ultimate solution, but all of these things can help. I hope that helps answer that question. How long did it take you to say that you're good producers? Work in progress, Nikos, like all of these things are. You know, it's not up to me if I'm good at something, really, in my opinion. You know, these days I'm more of an audio engineer. You know, I run Unlock Your Sound. We're an audio engineering company. You know, but I value myself based on my clients and based on, you know, the value that I bring to other people. So it's not really for me to say, if that makes sense. Does it make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
What's good to you is good to someone else. I don't know. I would just say it doesn't matter how good you get or how good you want to become. Just try and improve every day.
Just be better.
Try and do something that makes you uncomfortable every day. Whether it's learning new chord progression, learning new technique, learning new plugin. But try something new.
Devote your life to it. Don't devote. You know, don't be like, oh, I need to get good. It's just too difficult to measure. Too difficult to measure, but get feedback, you know, get feedback from your peers, get feedback from your audience, post stuff it's so easy to do that. Post stuff to SoundCloud and see what people say, share it with your friends. Now, but at the same time, take the feedback with a pinch of salt. Think about where they're coming from with that feedback as well, because one thing that that I'm reasonably careful of, or I used to be reasonably careful of, is like, as a producer, sending my stuff to other producers, because I think as a producer, when you're giving feedback, you feel like you have to say something constructive. You know, like you feel like, well, I'm the producer, I'm also a producer, so I feel like I should say you need to do that thing correctly or something like that. But just put stuff out. Like these days, that you know, it's not like before, like 30 years ago, when you just didn't have a sounding board at all. It'd be really difficult to do that.
Don't be that person.
Don't spam.
You know who that person is. They copy and paste. Check out my new song, or even worse, where they pretend to talk to you on like Facebook Messenger or something, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, how you doing? Yeah. Boom, check out my song." I'm like, "Oh, you didn't even want to talk to me, did you? You just wanted to spam your track." Yeah. If you're asking for constructive feedback to help you improve, that's different. But if you're just spamming, we've all seen those posts, and most people who do that do get blocked.
Good question, Chris. Who is an engineer or just someone in your field that you look up to or take inspiration from? Okay. Well, I have quite a good network.
Yeah.
Huh?
Shepherd?
Who? I do like Ian Shepherd a lot. Yeah, I do like Ian Shepherd a lot. I think I like Ian Shepherd a lot because I think he's communicated a lot of good value to the community. Stuff that I think a lot of people didn't want to talk about or were shy to talk about or had, it's difficult to be the first one to come out with stuff, and because no one that I know of was really educating the masses on what like mastering is and stuff like that and what the process looks like.
The old school guys want to keep it secret, I feel.
Yeah, I think that.
Or maybe they're just not down to earth with camera gear and social media.
Yeah, I think there
Probably
might be
both.
It could be a reservation of that, or how to communicate or why to communicate it or whatever. But I'm fortunate. I've got a good network of peers in the engineering field who I bounce off all of the time. Some people who I Skype with and stuff like that, and we just give each other feedback on what we're doing and just discuss the art of engineering and share like issues and challenges that we've had and stuff like that. So Ian Shepherd as a educator, as much as obviously as a mastering engineer, but as much as anything, Ian Shepherd as an educator. But there are plenty like that. I can't think of. I think what Graham Cochran has done is really, really cool as well. I know that he has empowered a lot of people all over the world to just get started and not worry too much about a lot of the stuff that we've already said. Actually, he's a good communicator of. Who is an engineer? I'm trying to think of others.
The boy Paulie B.
Oh, Paulie B. Paul Bailey. Yeah,
sounds like he's from Jersey Shore. Paulie B.
Paulie B was great actually. It was really cool to talk to him for the mastering course. Was it 6 months ago or something like that? October time or just before that, I think, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a really good chat. He's worked at Abbey Road and stuff like that.
Paul Bailey, not Paulie B.
Yeah, Paul Bailey. I don't know. It's hard to say. I do actually get a lot of inspiration and a lot of motivation from the people who I actually work with and my customers. Like when we at Unlock Your Sound, provide a great service and they communicate that to us, and we feel like we know that we've made them happy or we've helped them realize their goals. That's addictive, to be honest with you, and that's actually kind of a continuous source of inspiration and feedback and stuff like that. How many loves is this live stream at? Cheers, Nick. Nick Lorenzo, actually, I'm gonna drop his name on this, as well as you, Chris, to be honest, in terms of answering your question about engineers. Nick puts out a lot of really good content and he communicates value that I don't see many other people communicate. He communicates like culture and stuff like that around being an artist and being an engineer and, and networking and helping each other out and, many of the positive sides of the industry and stuff like that. Nick Lorenzo of Panorama Mixing and Mastering, he's communicating value in a really, really unique way, and massive respect to Nicholas and to yourself, Chris. I don't know, others will say, but when will you start to take feedbacks like that's sick or? I don't know how to answer that question, Nikos, but
read out the question.
I know that the others will say to you if you are good, but when will you start to take feedbacks like that's sick or that's awesome, man?
It's all the ears of the beholder.
Yeah, exactly.
What's awesome to me, I think Aphex Twin's awesome. If I show that to an 80-year-old woman, they'll probably hate it. Or they might love it. I don't know. It's all subjective. I don't know.
You have to. Yeah, that's one thing that you need to understand about music.
Are you trying to appeal to the masses? Or are you trying to appeal to certain niche musicians? McDonald's is popular. Is that the best food out there? Probably not.
I think you have to love what you do before anyone you can expect.
Just because something's commercial, just because something's popular, doesn't mean it's awesome.
It's better, yeah. Like it's. Cheers, Chris. You have to understand that it's subjective. This is probably a good piece of advice. When you get feedback, try and break it down as to what type of feedback that it is. Saying like it's great, obviously that's a nice feeling. Saying it's bad, that's not a great feeling. However, like, is it constructive? Can you take that feedback and apply it in some way? Will it make you better? And get good at knowing what feedback, good feedback sounds like. Not good like it's great, but like, I think you should do this, or have you considered this? If someone's just saying it's great, and it's just because they love you and they don't want to hurt your feelings, then take that with a pinch of salt. If they're just saying it's bad, but they don't know why, or, try and figure it out, or just take it with a pinch of salt. But take the constructive feedback as the good feedback. Even if it's negative or good, take the constructive as what is good for you.
I would say I don't know. I'd rather have people love me and hate me and think I was all right.
Yeah.
So when Stravinsky, the orchestra performed Stravinsky's Rite of Spring, first performance, people like got up and stormed out and booed him and threw stuff because it was so outrageous and so out there. You hear Rite of Spring now, I think it's awesome. But at the time, it was so out there. I don't know. If people think it's awful, people hate you, good. It means you're doing something. You're getting those emotional triggers. You're getting those spikes. So if people think it's all right, I'd rather have people hate me than think I was all right.
You never know, personally. They might love you in 10 years.
But they might love you in 10 years, yeah.
There's stuff I've used to hate and now I love, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Just because, guess what, like, everyone's just a little bit different every day.
Yeah, if you want to be popular, I guess my advice, if you want to be popular, listen to the mainstream artists and try and copy them and change slightly. But do you want to do that?
Try and add value to it.
Like, do you want to be Taylor Swift with slightly different coloured hair, or do you want to be something a bit more unique? I don't know. It depends what you want to do. It really depends.
Nicholas will have some great stuff about this. He's really good at that stuff about. But in terms of like being popular and stuff like that, like, do that but add value, because no one needs what they already have. If that makes sense.
I don't know. I think the masses really do relate to stuff they've already heard. I think a lot of time, a lot of people want to hear stuff they've already heard with a slight difference.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's the same. If you listen to the pop, most of the main pop songs nowadays, it's kind of the same, like 8 chord progressions, just going round and round. It's the same kind of melodies, the same kind of rhythms. Of course, you do get artists every now and again that just flip everything around. However, but the majority of the stuff is pretty similar. It's just patterns that people recognise, a lot of it. But there's no reason why you have to be one of them. Do you really want to be the next Justin Bieber?
Are you asking? Oh, no, personally, no.
I don't think I could be the next Justin Bieber. I don't think I've got the hairstyle.
But also, learn things like music theory and stuff like that.
Yeah,
because,
of course.
Music theory is a language, and it will help you actually decipher music and actually start to understand why it is the way
stuff
that
like
it is.
Learning modes, learn all your modes, learn all your scales. That will help.
Just keep learning. You'll keep growing. I need to come back to this question. How many luffs is this live stream at? Probably -1. Integrated. To answer your question, Nick. Mainstream, no way. Cool, then do what you want.
Yeah, if you don't want to do mainstream,
why are you making music? Just make it and just
make what you enjoy and make what you
have
think
fun,
is,
enjoy it.
Yeah, is the best music you can do. Or your favourite kind of styles, mess stuff up, try new ideas. Of course, you get artists like, I don't know, maybe someone like Flume, who is mainstream, but also has some cool ideas in there as well. But it really depends what you want to do. But let's go back to home studio. This home studio.
Home studio.
Be interesting to see what kind of equipment you guys are. What equipment you guys have.
Yeah. What equipment? What equipment do you guys have, and what challenges are you having with it, or just what challenges are you having in general at the moment, trying to create music at home, assuming you're at home? How do you be a good producer of music or video?
So to be a good producer of music or video is do it lots of times. The first time
the more you do something, the better you get.
Yeah, the first time you do anything, you're not going to be amazing. But just keep on doing it, keep on doing it. I was looking back at my first video I put on YouTube, and I was so wooden. I was so intense.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the first tracks I made are a long time ago, but they weren't very good. But gradually they do get better and better and better. If you just keep on improving, if you just do the same thing over and over again, you get the same results.
Yeah, like my mixes and masters sound a lot better now than they did a long time ago. And if you're listening back to your old stuff and you're cringing, you're probably doing something right, because not only are you getting better, but your ear is getting better at understanding what sounds good.
So Nikos, will you make a video in the future teach us music theory? I've actually got a complete music theory for electronic producers course, which is over 8 hours long, where I go into major chords, minor chords, melodies, arpeggios, modes, pretty much all the essentials. I do have a free one online as well called The Beginner's Guide to Music Theory. If you type that on YouTube, Beginner's Guide to Music Theory, it's like a 40-minute kind of summary. So I recommend just go through the 40-minute summary if you like that. Maybe consider taking the course, but it's up to you. But yeah, I've already made one, basically.
Tino asks, I will gladly answer this question. Can you talk about compression and EQ? What are the main differences between these two things? How to approach and use them as a complete beginner? Thank you. Okay, so
we're going to be here a while.
We're going to be here a while, but I'm going to make this simple. Assuming that I'm going to assume that you're a beginner, so I'm sorry if that's not the case, but the way that I see these things, the way that I see plugins that you put on the chain that do something to the sound, that affect the sound, they are problem solvers. And it kind of goes back to Corey's question about room treatment. The tool, the problem solver, doesn't have much purpose, and it's difficult to use it well if you don't know what problem you're trying to solve with it. EQs and compressors are problem solvers. And now an EQ, it just changes the balance of frequencies in the signal. Okay, so if you've got too much bass in the signal, whether it's a vocal track or an entire mix, EQ will allow you to rebalance that. It will turn it down and balance it against the rest of the frequencies, and vice versa. If the vocal was too bright, you can turn down the brightness. Much like on an old stereo system, you'd have a graphic equalizer and it will change the general tone of the sound. That's the most basic version of it I can think of at this point. Mm-hmm. Compression is so compression is kind of that, so compression is when you're listening to your stereo and it's too loud, you turn it down. When it's too quiet, you turn it up. Compression is that automatic, so when it gets too loud, the compressor just turns the signal down, and it's just doing that up and down based on how loud or how quiet the input is. That's what compression is. The word compression refers to the dynamics of the signal. So the dynamics refer to the variances in level or loudness of the signal. If the vocal waveform looks like this all of a sudden, compression will try and bring that down so that the vocal sound is more consistent, especially in the mix, because you don't want it to just pop out the mix, but you also don't want it to just fall to the back of the mix and you can't hear when the vocalist sung that word or sung that bit. Compression just reduces the differences in level of a signal based on many parameters, which I'm not going to dive into, but we've got content for that. But yeah, they're two very different things, but you will often use them together in some way. You might have an EQ before a compressor on a chain, because the EQ is going to have an effect on the way that the compressor behaves and stuff like that. But these tools are problem solvers in the post-production or the mixing process, and they should be used as such.
Okay.
However, what you shouldn't just do, though, in my opinion, and this is where I think a lot of people get stuck at first, is every track needs EQ compression because that's what they said on Facebook. Like, that's
I used to do that.
Yeah, we all did. That's not the right way to use those tools. Just keep it simple. Like, I value simplicity highly in life. You know, I try and keep everything as simple. I try and assume the simplest solution for everything. You know, and when you're mixing, just balance those faders, keep it simple, and then solve problems when you find those problems that are occurring because the balance just isn't quite working. Thanks a lot. What about something like multiband compression then? I use that a lot when I'm mixing. It feels like more of an EQ kind of thing. Any thoughts on this? Okay, so it's similar. It kind of is. So a multiband compressor is just many compressors. You take the signal, the multiband takes the signal, it copies it, or it takes the signal and goes, right, I'm trying to think of the best way to say this.
Splits, well, you have separate compressors for separate bands of frequency.
It splits the signal into different bands. So you've got the low band, the mid band, and the high band, and each of those three signals has its own compressor, so you can compress the bands.
You can choose the band as well.
And then, and you can choose the width of the band.
Yep, so say, I don't know, you're compressing a drum kit, you might want the kick drum compressed different to maybe the snare, maybe the cymbals.
Yes.
So you can have different compressors for different bands of frequencies.
This is I'll tell you one reason I use multiband compression in mastering, for example, is not because I can apply different settings on different bands. It's because I can actually use the same settings on different bands but get different results, because the input that's triggering the compressor is different in each band. It's like I use multiband compression when I need compression that's more transparent. When I need the kick drum not to be compressing, the trigger of the kick drum to not be compressing the entire mix. It's only compressing the band that it sits in. Multiband compression, just like the rest of these tools, especially more sophisticated tools like this, they have many, many applications. Sometimes in mastering, I'll use multiband compression not to use all of the bands, but actually just to compress one band. So I can bypass the high band and the low band and only work on taming the dynamics of the mid-range, because in mastering I only have, a printed stereo mix to work with. I can't compress the vocal track in mastering, but I can compress the band of the vocals.
Kind of simple,
like I can compress the band that the vocals sit in without affecting the dynamics of the high end or without affecting the dynamics of the low end, and vice versa.
So we've got a question from Amir about what 81 key MIDI keyboard to get. I personally really like the Oxygen series by M Audio. I've been using them for years. You've got little drum pads on there, you've got all the knobs and dials, so if you use, say, Ableton Live, you can quickly MIDI map. I just like M Audio products a lot of the time, and the Oxygen series has always worked for me. So I'd have a look at the 61 key M Audio Oxygen. Reasonably priced, work awesome in my experience. It's just what I'm used to, it's what I like. Yeah, so have a look at that. You don't have to get it if you don't want to, but that's what I use.
Nikos asks, what is the difference between mixing and mastering? Okay, so mixing is when you are taking all of the elements of a song, so the vocals, the bass, they've all been recorded, the keys, the guitars and stuff like that, and you are balancing them. You are balancing them against each other. Just think of a big mixing console that you see in all of the hip-hop videos. All of these faders adjust the levels of the instruments and stuff like that.
A lot of the videos, they don't actually do anything. It's just a stereo.
Yeah, you might even see just a two up, actually, but don't worry about that.
But it looks cool.
Yeah, so mixing is taking the elements of a song and balancing all of the elements together for the benefit of how good the song, the end mix sounds like. The mix is all of the elements that you hear. Mastering is taking one or a collection of songs and optimizing them and producing the masters. So the masters are what gets duplicated, so what gets uploaded and sent to Spotify and iTunes and stuff like that, or gets sent to a CD replication plant for a replication. Mastering is just the process of taking a song or a collection of songs and making sure that it's all optimized, all of the EQ and the relative loudnesses and dynamics are all optimized. The album just works. It's a pleasure to listen to. The fades are great. The gaps are great. It just feels great to listen to, and it's all optimal, and nothing's too loud, nothing's too quiet. It's just optimizing, and then the authoring of the final product. Those are the masters, the master copy, if you like. Just like in any other medium, you have a master copy of something. The mastering engineer is the person who is doing as little or as much as necessary to make sure that what they author is of the highest possible quality. As a mastering engineer, as someone who provides mastering services, I think these days that role has extended to, just from my experience, into actually having a dialogue with the artist or whoever the client is early on, and helping them or even coaching them to an extent to make sure that what they give you is the best possible version, so you can create the best possible version of their music. It's quality control, it's correcting errors, it's a collaboration, it's a service, it's just making sure that the end product sounds as good as possible.
Yes. So Nikos asks, it's like mixing but on the master channel. Normally not master channel. I'd normally bounce the mix and then start a new project to master.
So what you're talking about there is...
So it's kind of saying like put a limit on the master channel, for example.
Well, let's say like if you put plugins on the master channel when you're mixing, that's mixing. That's part of mixing. It's an extension. It's a valid part of the mixing process. Sometimes I might want some EQ or compression on the master channel of a mix because it's helping me glue the mix together, or it's just helping me in some way. It's a valid part of the mixing process. Just because it's in the master channel doesn't mean it's necessarily mastering. Mastering is taking that mix file or those mix files and doing as little as much as necessary to make them optimal. It's not, when you're mixing, and when you're mastering, in my opinion. However, if you mix a song and you do all of this processing on the master channel, and then you hit bounce, and then you've decided that is it.
Been mastered.
You've mastered it. Yeah. Like you decided that is the master. Technically it's just creation of the master file, the master copy. These days that's digital files, but it's also optimizing it. But if you decide, like I said, that's the file, then you've technically mastered it. If someone asks you who was the mastering engineer, you was. But if you send it to a mastering engineer, they will optimize it for you. And the value of that is that they have a different perspective. They will have a purpose-built facility and a room and speakers and stuff like that. And, they will hear stuff that you can't hear, possibly. And they're just different set of ears. They're not sentimentally attached to the process like you were. They're not thinking about that fader movement or that automation that you did.
Oh, I love that bit, that automation. I love that bit there. I can't get rid of that. That took me ages. They don't really think like that.
And they're not thinking like,
best for the track.
Was that little thing that I did right? They're not still thinking about it because they never did it. So they have that objective perspective on the music. So it's really difficult to define mastering these days. But before it was really simple. Like if you produced, recorded, mixed a bunch of songs, they have to go to a mastering engineer because only they could author it down to the final product or get it, for vinyl or for CD or whatever. But these days it's just, for some people it's a bit more blurry, but I don't think it generally should be.
Yep. So thank you, Amir. I'm glad you've found this live stream helpful.
Cool. Yeah. Excellent. So going back to home studio basics and stuff like that. Do you think you guys are having challenges maybe with your microphone or your preamp? Are you struggling to get a good sound in, or is struggling to hear a good sound, or struggling as to what to do next? You're welcome. Just let us know. Just ask those questions. But
I think a lot of it is just so much equipment, so much gear out there. Just finding the stuff that you resonate with.
Yeah. Literally. I mean, not literally, but resonate.
Resonator.
I mean, there's definitely a thing in there. Resonator.
Yeah.
The resonator.
It's an Ableton Live.
That would be, is that an EQ or something?
Resonate. I think it's like a bit crusher.
That doesn't make sense to me.
I think.
Why would that be? Why would a bit crusher be a resonator? For me, that's an EQ. I don't know. I don't use Ableton. You do.
I do. I should know. But yeah, I think a lot of it's just finding the. I've spent so many hours, so many evenings just. So I've got to find out what a resonator is now. I should know.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Cool. Any other questions at all, guys? Thomas, what sort of are specific DAWs better for specific musical genres? I'd
say yes. Chris would say no.
No, it depends. It depends. Like many of these questions are difficult to answer in absolutes, but workflow, which is a subjective thing, arguably yes, maybe. Like, but there are always exceptions. Like, a lot of people might say that FL or Ableton is workflow-wise better for EDM. But more than enough successful EDM producers use Logic.
Yeah.
More than enough.
Swedish House Mafia use
Logic. And, you know, just because Ableton or FL are on paper better workflows for EDM, you might have a workflow inside Logic that you've created that nothing else can beat. Because it's just the way that you make music. You know, it's very difficult. If you're talking sonically, however, no. There's no technical reason why one would sonically be better than another for producing a type of music. Like, it's in terms of the grand scheme of things, that's not really
I'm going to say, if you're new to producing music, Logic Pro 10. Just because the vast array of instruments, effects,
There's
plugins.
Nothing it can't do. There's nothing it can't do.
It's easy to use, easy to set up. Everything is there. If you're new. However, if you want to create kind of more advanced electronic music, I might consider having a look at Ableton Live. You can do great stuff in both, don't get me wrong. But I really like how easy it is to attach certain MIDI controllers and MIDI map in Ableton Live personally, and warping in Ableton Live. I love hooking up the push and other MIDI devices and APC 40, and just quickly you can create more of a performance. If you want to use a DAW for live performance, Ableton Live hands down.
Yeah, but within music genres, there are many different workflows and ways to work. Like, two EDM producers, as an example, they might get to similar results, but totally different ways, totally different workflows.
Yeah,
because it's very subjective, you know.
I don't know. For my opinion, I prefer mixing in Logic Pro. I prefer recording audio in Logic Pro, but I prefer composing electronic music and arranging electronic music and performing live in Ableton Live. It really depends. So Tina says, I've only tried Ableton Live and I'm very, very happy with it, but I thought I'd just ask out of curiosity.
Ashley says, this is better than Emmerdale.
Emmerdale.
That's it. We're done. End goal achieved.
Emmerdale.
That was the goal. That's not the goal.
Yeah. Soap, a UK soap, if you're watching this out of
a UK soap.
If you've never heard of Emmerdale. I like Ableton Live. I like Logic Pro. I've used FL. I've used Cubase. They're all very good, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe don't use Sibelius to write electronic music.
Yeah. So there you go. That's actually a really good example. You know, or like Audacity is probably not going to get you far in making beats.
No.
You know, like it's just difficult. Is it possible? Yeah. Is it really difficult? Absolutely.
So stuff like GarageBand does have, Chris can say all this, they'll all do great stuff, but stuff like GarageBand does have a lot of limitations. You do need a pro, if you want to take this seriously, you do need a pro level digital audio workstation. I'd say the main ones, in my opinion, Logic Pro, Ableton Live, FL Studio, Pro Tools.
But to
maybe
give you,
Cubase as well.
To throw another variable in that, like if you are...
Personally, but...
If you're an acoustic, like if you just sing and play acoustic guitar, like you can get a pro level recording in GarageBand. There's no physical reason that wouldn't be possible in an absolute sense.
It's still limited. You know? If you want to slightly tweak certain things, it's
exactly. But if it fulfills the if it
fulfills what you need.
If your limitations are within the limitations of the DAW, then but I wouldn't want anyone to think it doesn't sound as good as Logic or it doesn't sound as good as Pro Tools, because that is actually something that people too easily believe, as is the case, but that, like, scientifically that just isn't the case.
So Ashley's asked Pro Tools for mixing. Pro Tools is great for mixing. However, I would normally try and do it all in one digital audio workstation, just because it gets confusing, bouncing stuff, moving stuff around. If you come back to a project and it's part of it's in one DAW, part of it's another, it can get confusing. So if you want to use Pro Tools, great. Just get used to using Pro Tools. Which is the best DJ software in your opinion? I like Traktor. Serato is good as well. But if you want to play other people's tracks and mix them, Serato or Traktor. If you want to create your own unique performance, Ableton Live.
Yeah, I just want to finally add to this last point, like in terms of Pro Tools for mixing. No choice of DAW will make the mix sound better. Like, a computer is just maths. Like, the maths is the same, like between Logic and stuff like that. If you bring the same audio files into Logic or into stuff or something,
there's obviously some stuff like our boy Paul Bailey. He uses Pyramix with an X. I've seen him use that. It's
Pyramix.
Looks pretty crazy, but he mainly mixes and masters orchestral music. So kind of a different ball game to what we do. So it's all orchestral, it's like orchestra. So it's really good for chopping and comping huge audio files.
So workflows, that's
workflow is different. So, but he's not up in the club. He's not like an EDM guy. He's like an old school classical producer. So it's very different. But yeah, Pyramix. He's the only person I've ever seen use Pyramix. Yeah, it looks pretty awesome, but probably only for classical music or comping audio, chopping audio. Thanks, Tino. I hope you've enjoyed this video, this live stream. Yeah, we're going back to Nikos, best DJ software. I use Traktor. I like Traktor. Serato's about as good. But yeah, it depends. The only thing about DJ software is of course you can do some samples, but a lot of it is just playing other people's songs. It depends. If you've got a residency in a club, you're going to have to play Beyonce, you're going to have to play the popular songs. If you've got more kind of a artsy residency, or you're doing a more kind of art space or performance, use Ableton Live and make your own beats, make everything unique, make it your own, maybe sample other people, but it depends what you're DJing for. If you're DJing for fun, if you're DJing to create a unique piece of music, I'd definitely use Ableton Live. I haven't used that one.
Recordbox.
I haven't used Recordbox, but if you're playing your music to entertain the masses, I would use Serato or Traktor. Recordbox, never used it personally. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Hey, Dave. Dave's here. I recognise his profile. I was going to make a point. Yeah. So like, in answering many of the above questions, one thing that you should probably take away from this is, like, for example, where Thomas and I differ on some things, that tells you how opinionated and how subjective this stuff is. Like, how there's no absolute answer to many of these questions. Some questions are answered in absolutes, but the vast majority of them are relative / subjective / context dependent or whatever. Like, you say, try and think of like Martin Garrix uses Logic, right?
FL Studio.
Oh, he does. Who am I thinking of then? No, he uses Logic 9 for something.
I don't think so.
Or someone else. Anyway, it doesn't. Anyway. So FL, he uses FL. Cool. Like, if he just had to use Ableton all of a sudden, it wouldn't necessarily make his life better. Like, he uses FL. He loves it. He knows it. That's
a lot of it depends on your price point. If you don't spend too much money, Logic Pro, $199.
I think Logic Pro is almost objectively the best, one of the best value for money. Value for money, yeah. You do need a Mac, but if you've already got one, it's like it is ridiculous value for money.
Ableton Live 10, upgraded to recently, is awesome. £600 though. So if you can afford if you can afford Ableton Live, and you want to experiment with live music, live performance. You say all this, but for live performance, I do think the session view in Ableton Live...
Yeah, I can't comment on that anyway.
...is a lot better than
I don't have
main stage.
I don't have much experience in that. But you know.
But I prefer mixing in Logic. I much prefer recording audio in Logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been using Logic a lot longer. It really depends. Yeah, it depends what you want to do. It depends on your price range. It depends if you've got a Mac or not.
Like Ableton, you know, for me, like that's always been the session view for me in my head. Ableton. So I can't even imagine myself using it as a recording DAW.
Yeah.
Or like Reason, like people say.
I used to love playing with synths and Reason. I used to love that.
I used to use Reason in version 2 because it was just the best fun in the world, because it wasn't trying to be anything other than a rack mount, you know, a series of rack mounted synthesizers.
I don't think I ever recorded a single thing of Reason. I just used to play in the synths.
But you know, someone might say to me, oh, you know, you can record in Reason now, so why don't you do that? I'm like, but that's not what Reason is for me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That for me, that's not what Reason is, you know. But also, something that not a lot of people talk about, but something I used to love doing is using more than one DAW. Like I used to, like there was Rewire and stuff like that. Like when I was at college, for example, like when I was producing around them, I would use Reason and Cubase, but not the Rewire, because you could rewire the two.
Okay, there's things like Sunflower where you can kind of wire different DAWs into ones.
No, but that's not what I did though. What I did was I would make my loops and my sounds in Reason, right? Make all of my loops, all of the different bits, and then I'd export them as audio files and bring the loops into Cubase as audio and make my arrangements and stuff like that and mix in Cubase. And that worked for me.
Okay.
Even though it wasn't technically like a streamlined, objectively great workflow, it was awesome creatively for me. You know, because I was like, I knew what I was doing here, and I knew what I was doing there. I committed here and I moved over to here. And those things are actually quite important in the creative process. Like just committing to this. No, I'm not going to change that anymore, you know. And then when I brought it into Cubase, I could do things like stutter and reverse and time stretch and stuff like that, you know. So I was like, make my loops, do all my sound design, do all my drums and stuff like that in Reason, export the files, close Reason. I'm done with Reason now. Big fat audio files, waveforms in Cubase, and you know, and arranging and mixing, like own it. Like someone might do the same in FL, because in FL you can go boom, 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 you know, and then, you know, render those down as loops and then bring them into, I don't know, Logic or something else, you know, or where, I mean, Burial used, I don't know what he uses these days, but he used SoundForge, Tomas. Do you understand? Like he didn't have a sequencer, but he's Burial. Like he would just take audio and samples from different places, and that's why people used to say, why can't I like mix in terms of turntables? Why can't I mix Burial stuff? Because it wasn't synchronized to a sequencer. Like he would literally like just splice things together and make it up, and he would make entire songs like this. But he's now Burial because no one did that before, because it was completely different, but he owned it. And it was actually part due to his own ignorance, because he just didn't know how the technology worked. So he would listen to songs, try and recreate those grooves and stuff like that. And he would go, oh, and he would just he had SoundForge, and just because SoundForge was, at least at that time, was just an editor. It was just, you know, you just put things. There was no grid. There was no bars and beats. Yeah. It was just literally like music concrete or whatever, like that, but it's still kind of technically dance music because it had a two-step and stuff like that. But he was literally making it, you know, whatever.
So Ashley says, do you ever do live coding of sound or visuals? No, but something I want to explore. I know you can get some plugins for Max for Live on Ableton Live. Yeah. Well, sync up to the beat. I have used for videos before. I've used After Effects templates and jiggled that, moved that around so it syncs with the beats. But for live performance, no. But it's something that I'm exploring now. I'd recommend, Ableton Live. Look at Max for Live. There is a few different visual things for that.
So I used to do that stuff at university using a program called Max MSP.
Oh, similar.
Which was watered down and put inside Ableton Live.
As Max for Live.
Yeah, Max for Live. I used to create what I used to call something like Chris Carvalho's continuous noise solution, where it was like I would make little synthesizers that you don't play, they actually play themselves with lots of random variables, and it would just spurt out a lot of different noise. And you know, I presented that to the dean of music, the 4 deans of music, in quadraphonic surround, and they're like, what is this? I was like, it's completely random, anything can happen. And then they were like, what if it falls to silence? I was like, so be it, you know. Anyway, yeah, I've done stuff like that.
So can you hook that up for live performance as well? Or is it all...
It was more generative stuff, okay. But a lot of the same tools were for... It is a live performance tool, but it performed itself. I didn't perform it, I just turned it on, and it just went on into eternity.
I'd say for Ashley, because a lot of your music, I'd say, is very visual. It's all about creating a show and a performance. I'd definitely look at, creating some visuals that you can sync up to the beat. It depends. If you're playing with a band, you want it really to sync up with you. It depends what you're doing.
Max MSP Jitter, the Jitter extension of Max MSP is fantastic for visual stuff. Yeah. It's easy to learn as well. Last time I checked, I mean, this is probably 10 years ago, but Baz tutorials on YouTube had some great tutorials about Max MSP, and I think they went on, they expanded into Jitter as well, like doing visual elements, because you can do a lot of those.
I'd probably start with Max for Live presets.
Max for Live presets, and then just break them apart and like
it is quite,
repatch
Max
things and see what happens.
Complex.
Max is insane.
Yeah, so maybe Max for Live, start with the presets and just kind of open up the presets and try and work it out.
That's awesome. I went to your show. That's really cool.
We're going to do a workshop on it. Cool.
Cool. Keep us posted on that. I'm really interested in that. I'm interested in things like, you know, I was really interested. Like at university, I went for a ridiculously pretentious phase in university. Like I was like, I didn't want to listen. Like I wanted to do away with the idea of recorded music in the sense that it would play and then it would stop. I wanted it to just continue growing. Anyway,
okay.
I find that stuff well interesting. Max MSP is fantastic for that. You can literally do whatever you want in Max MSP.
Yeah, it's
anyway,
it's a deep program. It's pretty.
It's everything. It's like complex. All of the components, and you just build stuff, and you can create. Like we used to walk into our Max MSP classes, and our lecturer would just be like, "We're going," and it's just weird, whooshy, droney stuff would be like, and he would just be like, you know, sort of like really crazy. We're like, "What is happening?" You'd be like, "Whoa," you know, this,
mad science.
It's alive.
Sound design.
Yeah, crazy stuff. Anyway, I can't be going down that rabbit hole like that.
But yeah, visuals are something that I want to work on quite a lot as well. Just to improve performances, really, of course. Audio is, in my opinion, audio is the most important, but visuals are still.
Good audio makes video look better, doesn't it?
Yeah, have a fast MacBook or laptop if you're going to do visuals, as well as trigger samples and perform on there, because you will need a fast one for visuals.
And if you've got the money, like do invest in a computer that can handle graphics, because especially if you want to pursue something commercially, you know, we live in a very visual media age, you know, and you might one day go, right, I need to be able to edit videos and do that stuff, render videos, and when push comes to shove, you're going to need a workhorse that can.
I know. Ashley, she does a lot of recording herself.
Yeah.
Don't use any copyrighted material. I recommend just getting a little camera or your phone, just like a little Joby stand like this. Just film your life. And I know you do a lot of layered material for your visuals. You like to make it kind of a bit nuts, which I like. Yeah. So there's a lot of layered, crazy colours. So I'd say just film all the visuals yourself. Make them all yourself. Of course, you can do stuff like I don't know, like After Effects, where you can actually use like actual like animation, but I'm not so good at that.
A question, hey Simone, a question that was asked by Phil in the event was about how to beef up low end, and it's actually a really just going back to audio mixing and stuff. It's actually quite a difficult question to answer, because depends where the low end is coming from in the mix, and he did say without saturation and you know, throwing in the sub. But I was going to add to that, like if like you have like a bass or something like that, synthesizers like retro synth allow you to just turn on an oscillator that produces a sine wave, because the sine wave is actually the most effective wave for a sub, because it is one frequency. A perfect sine wave is one frequency, and it's the most effective for thickening any bass that you have going on, like an octave or even two below.
You can get some sneaky plugins as well, like there's the drum bus in Ableton Live.
Yeah,
which is awesome for that.
Yeah, but if you want to keep it simple, just like in Logic, you can open up the EXS24, and if you don't load a sample, it's a sine wave.
Yeah,
it's and that will thicken up the low end. But it does depend where the low end is coming from. If it's a mix thing, maybe you just do actually need a bit more low end in the mix. If the low end is a bit wobbly, you might need to compress it or even reduce the difference between left and right, so it kind of gels in the middle using a mid-side plugin or something like that. But it will just be a relative mix balance thing for the most part. And make sure that it's obviously in tune with it's not like in weird phase with the kick or your bass or anything like that, because that's going to create a confusing image.
It depends what kind of music you're creating.
Yeah.
But yeah, layer the kick. Easy one. I'd use the drum bus in Ableton Live 10 if you use that. That's awesome for beefing up drums and for adding subs. Yeah.
The people say saturation quite a lot. The thing you have to understand about saturation is it distorts the waveform, which creates harmonic content. So you'll be creating new harmonics, which might even which can help, but at the same time it can also hurt the feeling of sub presence, because it's good if you want the sub to translate, because those extra harmonics will be higher up in the frequency spectrum and make it more translatable to lower quality speakers and stuff like that. But you need to keep the mix of the harmonics and the actual fundamental good, so that you can still feel the sub. But a lot of people say harmonics, because it seems to be louder, but only because there's extra harmonics and stuff. But it really depends where your sub content is coming from and why it's there. And but sometimes, going back to the mix/mastering question, don't be afraid to assume the simplest solution. And if you have the headroom, and if you don't, you can just turn down the gain on the master bus. Load an EQ and do a bump somewhere. As long
sounds really simple, but
it's really simple. Yeah, but it could be the solution for the problem that's unique to the mix that you're mixing. Don't be afraid to do that. And it's not mastering. I know Phil knows this, but I'm just saying to the masses, that's not mastering, and it shouldn't be that's mastering. The mastering engineer should do that. When you're mixing, you should be getting to the goal, as you should forget that there is such thing as a mastering in a way. You should be doing what you can to realize your mix vision. You should be trying to make the product that you want to listen to, or you want your audience to listen to when you are mixing. The only thing I wouldn't worry about is, what is the absolute LUFS level of it at this moment in time, because that's an absolute that the mastering engineer will take care of. But even that is that's relative to how well you balance the mix elements anyway. So
yeah.
I hope that makes sense for anyone who's wondering about that sort of bottom end sort of thing. It really depends where that bottom end is coming from. Alchemy's interface is beautiful for sine waves. I agree that Alchemy's interface is beautiful in general.
For everything. Alchemy is
a
you could pay $200 just for Alchemy, and you get it included in Logic.
Just load preset, hold note, and go and just.
Yeah, I just like the kind of the little the XY, the simple. If you're just feeling lazy, you can just use a simple, then go to advanced and tweak. Yeah, Alchemy is a very nice synthesizer. Can use up a lot of CPU though, but it's very nice.
I'm thinking about Maximus P now. I'll tell you one thing that's cool about Maximus P actually. That could be a really accessible way to start really experimenting. Learning Maximus P will teach you how MIDI works. Like, because in Maximus P, especially if you do their tutorials, which are probably the best tutorials in the world, because when you're learning Maximus P, you're learning MIDI and audio. Like, I learned a lot of stuff at uni by learning Maximus P. I understand and think about signal flows and, you know, things that make gain happen and things that make FM happen and how MIDI works, what a MIDI message looks like and stuff like that. And you can use that stuff not only will you just have a deeper appreciation of music technology in general, but you will be able to like make a quirky MIDI instrument that you can send to Logic or Ableton and get some really cool stuff out of. Yeah, I mean, even like a friend of mine, Danny, he made a MIDI glove.
I've seen that.
Yeah. There's been things like that.
I've seen that, yeah.
Anyway, but something like Maximus P could actually teach you how MIDI and audio work. You know, what all of that data stuff. Anyway, I'm getting too nerdy for this.
So if you've got any final questions, I recommend put them down now before we sign off.
Yeah, before we sign off. Otherwise, just drop them into the group as always. Also, if you've got any feedback about the content that we've been putting in there recently, anything that you suggest, anything you think that's cool, anything that you want to see more of, we hope that you're enjoying it. We're trying to make it just enjoyable content, you know, and document the process, especially when we're doing vocal production and stuff like that. I think sometimes like just the over the shoulder, because what's missing these days is decreasing these days is the ability to go to a studio and just watch music production happen, you know, so this is the next best thing.
Yeah, sometimes for me, I love watching the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah.
The process, kind of the grind, see what's actually happening,
and
rather than just the final product, which of course the final product is important, but sometimes the process is
but you have to love the process, because otherwise you'll never get to the final product, because the process is long. Love green screening and layering. Awesome.
Yeah. Right, we're going to head off. Thank you for watching DMM Show, Episode 1. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll hopefully see you in Episode 2.
Yeah, we'll send out the next one soon.
So if you're not watching this on the live stream, remember to join the Digital Music Masters Facebook group. The link is in the description, either up or down. So it's just facebook.com/groups/Digital Music Masters. And that way you can join the group. Just say you're from YouTube or Facebook, wherever you're watching this, and we'll let you in the group. And that way you can ask questions for the next Digital Music Masters show. So thank you again for watching, and we'll hopefully talk to you soon.
Take care.